Welcome to the Trending XR podcast, where we discuss the latest in augmented reality, virtual reality, and AI with industry leaders who are shaping the future of how we will work, socialize, and go about our daily lives in the third dimension. In the not so distant future, we won't even be using phones. We'll be using these. I know, sounds crazy, but we have never been closer to this future concept becoming our current reality. I am so excited to share this new world with you. I hope to teach you, inspire you, and ignite your passion for extended reality. It's time to change dimensions. Are you coming? Welcome to episode 1 of Trending XR podcast. I'm Cody, and I have 2 awesome guests on today to teach us everything about Gaussian Splats, cloud compute, edge computing, and if that sounds like a different language to you, then you're in the right place, because this podcast is all about teaching you, inspiring you, and igniting your passion for extended reality. So without further ado, let's bring on Krasimir Nikolov and Blake Wind. Hey guys, welcome to the podcast.
Hey Cody, thank you for having us.
Just to get started with the convo, why don't you guys give me like a who you are, what you do a little bit, like a little background about your company and yourselves.
Awesome. Again, thank you for having us, Cody. My name is Krasimir Nikolov. I'm co-founder and CEO of QuirkXR. I've been in the XR industry since late 2013. This is my second company. Basically, Quirk is focusing on building enterprise XR applications and cloud streaming technology. I've been very passionate about human-computer interfaces and XR as the future of that, and the applications that XR technologies can have on how people work and communicate. So I'm very, very happy to talk about this.
Thank you so much for having me on as well, Cody. I really appreciate it. I wasn't present at the foundation of QuirkXR, but I've been with the company for some time now. I spent the bulk of my career supporting startups from Central and Eastern Europe. I'm originally from New York, but I'm based in Moldova now, and Krasi's in Bulgaria. I started working with Krasi after getting involved in a project to create an accelerator with an ex-Tesla engineer. And I was very eager to explore like the XR marketplace and the dynamics of the landscape at the time. I got a chance to get acquainted with a great number of companies actually. But when that project folded, I went in search of other possibilities, and Krasi offered me to come on full time and support him with biz dev. Right now, I've been working together with Krasi as we push hard into AEC. The company has a strong record of success in enterprise, but we're moving more heavily towards AEC as a vertical.
And just so for the viewers, so they know what AEC is, that's architecture, engineering, and construction, correct?
That's
Yeah.
Before we get into like how you guys, what you do interacts with AEC and enterprise, maybe we'll start with like what inspired you to get into specifically what you do, which is in the realm of compute, cloud compute, right? And a lot of that has to do with NeRFs and Gaussian Splats. And for people who are watching this who don't know what those are, I have some material here that Blake had showed me that will kind of like explain it to you like you're a 3-year-old, which is kind of what I needed because these are also new things to me. But they are really important processes and kind of like the cutting edge of the compute space, so that this is like the framework and the real back end in the weed stuff that's going to allow us to do extended reality in the future with augmented reality glasses and mobile stuff that's more efficient because compute takes up a lot. It takes up a lot of the resources on board the hardware. So they're finding more efficient ways to do this and display really immersive visuals more effectively. So do you want to give us a little bit of background on your start, your inspiration, and what got you into XR specifically, or like maybe like
Yeah.
a catalyst moment that got you guys into specifically what you do?
100%. 100%. So for me, the catalyst moment was probably, you can say 10 years ago when about the time the Oculus Developer Kit 2 got released on Kickstarter. And that was the first really affordable virtual reality device on the market, because prior to that, virtual reality was something that only military and universities and research institutions would use, and it would cost in the millions, tens of millions of dollars. And then all of a sudden, we had Oculus on Kickstarter for, if I believe correctly, $350, which was extremely affordable. And um, I was able to get my hands on one here in Sofia in Bulgaria, which I'm not gonna lie, wasn't very easy. Um, and checked out some of the few demos that they had at the time. One of them I remember very well. It's Tuscany Villa in Italy. So basically, you will have a virtual walkthrough of this villa. And even back then, my first impression was, well, that's gonna be great for architects and designers and obviously games, right? Everybody was thinking about gaming at the time, but there wasn't a lot of content available. So the first idea when later when we were starting CorkXR was about, okay, how do we enable people to create better content? Because and me and my partners at the time, we were not coming from content creation or gaming background. We were coming from a software engineering background, and we were thinking about there are people that can create uh, amazing games. They can tell amazing stories. How do we enable them to do that? So we started creating tools to enable them to run their apps across so many different devices. And one of the things that stood out at the time was, if you remember those old VR headsets, they all were all wired to an expensive PC.
Right.
And, and we said like, well, think about our background here in Eastern Europe. Uh, not a lot of people have that access to that equipment. Is it possible to make it more affordable? Later on came devices like Google Cardboard and Samsung Gear VR. Google Cardboard in particular, incredibly cheap. You just fold a piece of cardboard and put your phone in it. So
Right.
we started thinking about how do we bridge the gap between Google Cardboard and a full-blown Oculus Rift or HTC Vive with a workstation PC. So I think the first step was to, so to say, cut the cord and start streaming. And eventually, we had the vision of moving all the compute to the cloud, and stream content from there to just what is essentially a receiver. So that's how we started building cloud technology. A lot of what we do today was not possible in 2016. It took a lot of evolution in the industry in cloud computing and devices, but now in 2025, it's a reality. So I'm very happy to see a lot of the original vision that we had for the companies somewhat fulfilled already, and there's so much innovation to come. So I think we live in a very, very exciting time.
Yeah, I agree. You guys are kind of one of part of that holy trinity, right? You got the hardware, and then you've got the compute and back end, and then you've got the creators, right? And they're all kind of dependent on each other. You can't really do anything without the three of them. So you guys are really advancing the part in the middle, right? Which is kind of a good segue to talk about edge. Which is from what I understand about edge is it in a standard like information transfer, right? You've got your server, and then it goes to the user's mobile device or their headset, right? And edge kind of resides somewhere in the middle, right, where it's kind of alleviating some of that compute power. If, I mean, and correct me if I'm misterming things, but it's kind of residing in the middle to help uh, consolidate or make it more efficient in the way that it's relaying data to the end user's hardware.
Right, right. That's a great way to put it. And yeah, that's exactly as you explained it. In edge infrastructure, you will have a lot of your backend, including the content, residing in a big data center, but a lot of the computing is offloaded to those edge servers that are somewhere ideally inside of a city or a large urban area, so that when a user is trying to play a game or experience any type of content, that streaming experience does not take them all the way to this remote data center, but instead happens on the edge, so very in a close proximity. That means the edge infrastructure is also quite sophisticated. You need GPUs, you need good networking equipment like 5G or fiber. So it's very expensive and complex infrastructure, but it's becoming more and more commonplace, especially in the States. Cloud providers like AWS, they have so many edge zones
Right.
that are in almost every big city in the States already. So it's basically a huge enabling technologies, like not just like startups like Quark, but anything that has to do with autonomous driving, AI edge
Right.
applications, XR. It's a great enabler.
Yeah, this is like a this man, we could like really rabbit hole on this part here because like this is so important to how everything scales from here, right? We got you have this edge in the middle because of latency, right? This is drastically reducing the amount of time it takes for that data to get to the end user, right? Which has everything to do about your experience with that. You know, if you
Right.
have these like latent images, I mean, this has a lot to do. It ties with like cyber sickness, where you have like the laggy
Yeah.
visual information in an XR, and the quicker that gets, the better we can curtail that effect, that ill effect that you get
Sure.
sometimes when you do amongst like self-driving cars where immediacy is extremely important because it,
Yeah.
it doesn't have time to just think, right? You need to be fast, really fast. And I think edge computing has a lot to do with why they're able to do what they're doing now, right?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, I think it's funny always in technology, you have this cycle of, things will consolidate and then the bundling and unbundling. So basically, we got those giant data centers and all of a sudden, web services all got, started being provided from there, and how, okay, we realized we need very low latency. So we're going back to smaller data center deployments like those edge deployments in the city, and it's very interesting how this will evolve. But also, you know, um, interesting to see competition. Like for example, this gives opportunity to operators also own and invest in part of this infrastructure. Probably, some of the companies that provide the headsets as well. So I think it's going to be interesting.
Yes, yeah, it is. I'm pretty excited for how this all evolves, and it's gonna evolve pretty quickly, I think. And I kind
Mhm.
of would like to ask you on that note, like with things changing in such a rapid fashion, particularly like how much faster things are getting, how better computing is getting, like, where you see
Mhm.
things going, like, and what maybe your shift is or your core mission is, looking at that long term view.
Right. Well, I think um, we have incredible devices, standalone devices on the market already. If you think about something like the Apple Vision Pro, it's incredibly powerful. It has the chip of a MacBook Pro inside.
Right.
Um, so it's interesting to think, and I think each application now can have a standalone version where it runs locally on the device, especially when you don't have connectivity for whatever reason. And then also the connectivity to be able to stream from a edge server any type of super high fidelity. Like NVIDIA always releases like new high-end hardware that pushes the boundaries of what's possible with ray tracing, with like all type of simulation software.
Mhm.
So if you think about it, it's very cool that you can have a powerful computer on your face, and then you can also connect to a supercomputer in the data center, essentially, and have that available to you to run all sorts of simulations and experiences.
So yeah, I'm curious, after hearing all of that, what you guys are working on currently, and any partnerships that you guys might have going on in the back end.
Sure. So this actually dovetails, Cody, with what Krasi was talking about and what I believe WorkXR is really great for in terms of our future perspective. Because I look at the development of XR as a sort of spectrum. The older variants are not going away. You still have headsets which are driven by a PC, for example. And we have a lot of those particular cases where those are always going to be useful for different things and will coexist with the standalone headsets that are out there now. And now at the same time, we have the entrance of a new generation of XR capable glasses that have even less power on them than the headsets do, but can be empowered via cloud compute and edge computing, as Krasi alluded to earlier. In our case, we're currently in the early stages of developing a partnership with one particular XR glasses maker, a very interesting company called XReal.
I think a lot of the viewers will probably have heard of this company. Yeah.
Yeah, they may very well
A
have.
small name in the space.
And they've decided to focus on building out better and better glasses by leveraging a phone which serves as like the main source of computing power, whether their own device, which is basically a phone that's optimized for these glasses, or some other devices. They're going to be expanding their roster pretty soon. And this model is also one, if you haven't heard about it, which is being pursued by other leaders in the space. For example, Meta with Project Orion, that has what they call
Exciting.
compute plus
Yep.
classes. But while Meta is currently looking at that as a sort of fancy science project with no plans to release just yet, XReal and others are actively here right now. And I believe very strongly that this form factor, this kind of glasses plus something at your side, is going to enable a lot of new use cases for XR. One of the
Yeah.
things
Agreed.
that's been a point of friction, for example, in the construction industry, is people going and saying to me, how am I going to wear a MetaQuest 3 on my face in a construction site setting? How
Right.
does that even work?
And they kinda dabbled in this with the Microsoft HoloLens, right? Where they had some construction software, which was pretty impressive, but they closed shop, I think, which is
Yep.
sad. But I think it'll come back because that's just such a useful technology.
Yeah.
Sorry, but
Right.
you were saying,
Right.
yeah, like, how are we gonna
Yeah.
walk around with these massive headsets on our face? Like, yeah,
Right. Right.
I can't walk around the construction
But
site like this. Yeah.
yeah.
I grew up in construction, so I have this unique
Right.
perspective on the 2
Right.
technology
Right.
or, like, the 2 spaces.
But I think we're at a point where very, very soon, and I honestly think this is going to be within a matter of months, we'll have these kinds of glasses integrated into hard hats as part of normal PPE and able for people to use on construction sites, like had been starting with the HoloLens, but at a more affordable price point. And that's where I believe it's going to break through.
Yeah, I agree. I'm such a huge backer of augmented reality that and specifically in the lightweight glasses form. I truly
Right.
believe it's gonna transform life as we know it, and I think that compared or, combined with AI, onboard AI, that knows you and knows your projects and everything that you have going on is really the power, shift that we're gonna have in the way that we do everything. It's gonna give us superhuman capabilities. And
Right.
and this is kind of, the great idea, but then the thing that makes this, doable is what you guys are working on. to be able to do those things efficiently and doesn't consume too much power, and latency is low, so you can work quickly. And it was great that you brought up the phone thing, because it does beg the question that, like, what happens to phones as we move into XR glasses, which I truly believe will be adopted by the mass population. It's in like 5 to 10 years max. Like, what happens to phones? These things that we spend all of our lives with. Do we see all of what we use a phone for become a visual app that is displayed through XR, or is it maybe you don't even see it? And it just turns into something that you interact with your voice. You don't use your hands anymore. So we start to see that happen. And then the phones, it asks, like, it begs the question as well, that do we just use phones for compute pucks? Do these things start to get developed in ways where, like, they remove the cameras and they remove all these other pieces that aren't being used in the hardware stack, and convert them over to compute stuff, for lack of a better way of saying it, to help us with to make our glasses even more capable.
I think this is a great example of this is the latest review of this Samsung and Google Android XR headset that became very popular on YouTube.
Yeah, Project Moohan.
The funny thing is they designed it in a way where it's quite similar to the Vision Pro, and let's say the whole user interface um, got a lot of inspiration from the Vision Pro in terms of user interaction and just industrial design and whatnot. But one very stark difference that this device had compared to Vision Pro is the use of Gemini, uh, Google's AI assistant. And compared to at least the version of Siri, which is on the Vision Pro, Gemini is so much more advanced and so much more closer to an actual virtual assistant, where you can ask Gemini to arrange your windows. If you are in Google Maps, you can say, show me New York City, and it will type if it needs to type in the search box for you. So you don't have to fiddle with typing and UI controls and XR. You just
Yeah.
pick out your intentions, and the AI assistant takes care of that for you. So I think
Right.
that is a glimpse into the future of what those user computer interfaces could be.
Yeah, this is kind of a core belief of mine. Actually, I truly believe humans are best visual learners, and learn from audio or sound. Right? We didn't come out of the womb reading textbooks. We learned by listening and watching and doing and having tactile experiences. And I think that's the beauty, the real true beauty of, like, of extended reality and these technologies, and AI vision, is the ability to go back to, like, our innate way of doing things, which is with our hands and talking and
Yeah.
communicating. It's just the most effective way to deliver information and make things happen for us as humans. And I think that this is such an amazing way to transfer from this, like, face down in your phone using your finger to, like, type out and do things. It's just so inefficient, and we're gonna see, like, the ability to maximize efficiency, and do a lot less of what you don't want to do, and do more of what you want to do using AI and extended reality.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you a tough one here. So what's your greatest challenge so far since you started your company?
Wow. Well, the whole industry has had so many challenges in terms of we still need so many iterations of the hardware to become comfortable enough for most people, which is not, uh, to be quite honest. And then the other one is on the content side, to have compelling content. I think this is part of the reason why we focus so much on industrial and work related applications, because I think these devices are great for short bursts of productivity where you need to accomplish a task like in design, in architecture, in a virtual meeting, in training. They can be extremely powerful, but yet I wouldn't wear it throughout my day, right? Because it's not comfortable.
Sure.
But for us as a company, the challenge has been, okay, we created this enabling technology for cloud computing, but it's not easy for other startups, other up and coming companies in XR to bet their future on cloud computing, or for the creatives, for the designers, for the engineers. How do we create experiences that run in the cloud and get streamed to devices, right? Where do you even start? So what we found out, and which has what has been a great enabler for our company and removed a lot of friction, is this Unity SDK that we started working on to basically enable people that don't have a lot of XR experience, don't have coding experience, to basically bring in their 3D assets, which may be models of a house or a building, models of a car, or any other industrial application, to bring them into a 3D XR application where you can view your 3D assets with other people. So the biggest power of XR is when you're in there with other people. It's not a single player experience. It's being embodied and talking to other people is where XR is the strongest. So
Mhm.
we wanted to enable people to create this type of experiences very easily. And since we did that, we've seen so much more use of our platform and so many new use cases, from architecture to construction to film to uh, industrial applications that we can spend all day talking about. So this has been very exciting. The lesson that we learned is that content is extremely important. It's like content is why people use those devices, and
Yeah.
creating great
Yeah.
content creates success.
Yeah, that's the really important piece of the puzzle. Like building the hardware and this there's this this time frame where they're just flirting with each other. Like compute gets better, so the hardware can get slimmer, and then eventually we get to a form factor that's conducive with everyday life. And then the real creation happens, and the app build outs explode, and we start seeing real adoption because there's a real market of usability, which we've seen with other technology. So it's a very transferable experience that we're having right now from previous things. Um, and then I had just shown your website here. I think this was kind of what you were explaining here. This is the SDK.
Yep.
This
One of
reminds
the
me of something.
reasons
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Blake.
No worries. So, one of the reasons I'm so confident in Crassie's vision is precisely because of the way that we're set up to enable others to build on top of what we have. Uh, to be perfectly frank, the previous companies that I was working with in XR, even though their solutions were excellent, died primarily because there was no possibility for them to do this. I started out working with a company called Ghost VR that had created a solution for figuring out where the user was looking in VR experiences for advertising purposes, for example. But the problem
Interesting.
was there simply wasn't enough advertising content to look at. The market just wasn't there because it was hard to build experiences in VR. And then after that, I ended up working for a great company that was building these wonderful bespoke experiences across all different sorts of verticals. But they died mainly because, again, it was hard to build stuff in VR. Now, the difference with QuarkXR and what we've decided to do is, since we're building on top of Unity, we have already this giant pool of people who are able to create experiences which can immediately be translated into XR that have background from years of game development or other graphics development and can suddenly just become XR developers. So, our strategy is fundamentally about bringing people into this space as a company, in addition to what we've built on the technical side and the IP that we have related to cloud streaming that we'll get to later, I suppose.
Yeah, that's great. And that makes me think of almost a little like a side thought on that is, I've been doing a lot of coding via prompt, like text prompting, right? I'm not a programmer, but we're seeing these new tools emerge where we're expanding the available creator market by giving the ability to make things with your native language, which is like amazing. Like we've never seen anything like this before. It's again going back to like what I was saying before, like our natural way of doing things by communicating via like talking and hand gesturing. This is a very effective way for people to build. Most people aren't programmers. Most creatives are not programmers.
Right.
So it's amazing future that we're looking at where people who are hyper creative and have lots of ideas can actually go into something like your SDK in the future and be able to talk to this model with AI and build things and deploy. This is going to help us rapidly get products out in the market for people to play around with, and this is really important
Sure.
because you look at like Apple Vision Pro, like they released kind of really expensive one, but two before they even had a real app market. So that
Yeah.
it's really difficult to get user bases if there's not a lot of stuff to use, and this is a unique advantage that Meta has,
Yeah.
just because they've been in the market so long, right?
Sure. I think the Quest is an amazing device, and especially for the price point that it costs, it's just and the things that you can do with a Quest, it is just incredible.
Yeah, I think Apple's got a future. I think obviously they're gonna they're gonna collect their thoughts and come out with a second version, maybe a little cheaper, but it's great. Their their universe of products really work very cohesively with each other, and I've seen some
Yeah.
awesome videos of like a Mac Mini linked up with an Apple Vision Pro, and I'm like, okay, that might be how everyone operates because it's so mobile, and you could take it
Yes.
anywhere, and the Mac Mini is, like, this big. You could plug it in at any coffee shop and work in spatial in sorry, in extended reality, and as the
Yeah.
headsets get a little smaller, this is, like it's quickly becoming, like, a real way of doing things. It there's that social thing. We still gotta accept people, like, doing this in a coffee shop, but I think we'll get there at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is where Gemini will really help us.
Yeah, there's so many creative it's endless, right? That's the beauty of extended reality is it's we're entering this new way or this new world of whatever you want, and you can build things that you find to be useful for yourself on the fly. Like the tailoring capabilities for anybody to just build something specific to their own idea that nobody else uses, right? It's just their, on their hardware. It's like I can go on like Bolt.new. It's a really great like text prompt to code and say I like need a tool to help me with this thing that I'm doing this week. Like and I'm never gonna use it again. But you could do that now. You can just talk
Yes.
to it and
Right.
have it build you this thing that you'll just use one and done. That's really cool. I think that we'll see a lot of that with XR and the ability to build quick
Right.
tools for yourself on the fly. But I want to ask you guys: is there a moment in your pursuit of this that's unique or stands out as maybe your favorite part of the journey so far?
That is a great question. I think we've had a few of those. I think when the original MetaQuest got released, I think it was the first moment like that because it was the first real glimpse into the future where you had a device which is standalone. It can sense the world around you. It can run natively apps on it, so you don't need a cable or anything. You can theoretically go around with it and use content. So that was that was when we said, okay, we finally have like a platform to build for. And then the industry followed, like companies like HTC and others, later on Apple, as we talked about. So I think that was one such moment. Um, I think basically also what happened during COVID with remote work, uh, also very helpful because it's weird to say that, but because we're talking about a pandemic, but the world really changed in a way where
Good.
people used to think you have to travel for almost everything. And then all of a sudden, like, first of all, how many people work remote these days? Um, how many, accelerated how many people basically are, or companies got offshored or basically hired contractors overseas and whatnot. So digital real-time communication became really, really important. And this is like a great use case for XR. So I think that's been beneficial for the industry.
Yeah, that was such a momentous time for humanity that I think maybe most people don't think about how big the change that had on the way that we're gonna do things in the future. Because that like you said, that was this really big moment where we went, "Oh, we don't need to drive in traffic every day into the city and live in the city." Now, like, the dynamic of how people work and live changed. So this is all on par with like the technology that we're talking about, which is allowing you to be free. It's giving you the capacity to do like what you want your own way and still achieve goals and tasks, and maybe even at a higher level, which is like really the cool part of all these technologies. But yeah, that was, man, what an era that was for the development of how we're going to do things in the future here. That is a whole wormhole conversation we could go
Right.
down a hole on. But I'd like to segue into maybe what you guys are working on currently, and then we'll do like a brief educational section here, and we'll tell people what Gaussian splats and NeRFs are, and photogrammetry and tiling, all these fun terms.
Amazing. Well, I think we touched upon it, but basically, I think CorkXR has amazing applications in use cases where you work with really large 3D models. And Cody, you touched upon how people learn so much better visually and with muscle memory, tactile, anything that can give you feedback to these, in a way, primal, you can say primal senses that a human does is so powerful in learning and communication. So tapping into that with XR makes a lot of sense. And the what we found for our platform is the use cases where you need to handle large 3D data, have to do a lot with architecture, with construction, with what we call digital twins these days, which is a very broad term, and everyone uses it kind of freely. But if we take a building, for example, a digital twin of the building would be not just a 3D representation with a 3D model, but it should also have real-time sensors that measure what's the temperature, what's the humidity, all sorts of other stats that may be related to this building, and feed it in real time to this digital representation. So now in any given moment in 3D on a computer or an XR, you can see what the building is like.
Whew, we're getting into some interesting stuff. Digital twins. What are they? Well, before Crassy gets into more information on that, let's jump over to a video that shows us a real world example of how digital twins are being used today at a commercial level. Let's take a look.
The future of heavy industries starts as a digital twin. The AI agents helping robots, workers, and infrastructure navigate unpredictable events in complex industrial spaces will be built and evaluated first in sophisticated digital twins. This Omniverse digital twin of a 100,000 square foot warehouse is operating as a simulation environment that integrates digital workers, AMRs running the NVIDIA Isaac Perceptor stack, centralized activity maps of the entire warehouse from 100 simulated ceiling mount cameras using NVIDIA Metropolis, and AMR route planning with NVIDIA cuOpt. Software-in-loop testing of AI agents in this physically accurate, simulated environment enables us to evaluate and refine how the system adapts to real-world unpredictability. All of the sensor data is created in simulation and passed to the real-time AI, running as NVIDIA Inference Microservices, or NIMs. And when the AI is ready to be deployed in the physical twin, the real warehouse, we connect Metropolis and Isaac NIMs to real sensors with the ability for continuous improvement of both the digital twin and the AI models.
And that has a lot of applications for so many companies in the world. If you think about how many large companies we have in oil and gas, in energy, in manufacturing, logistics, etc., that they own thousands and thousands, probably hundreds of thousands and millions of physical assets, which may be facilities, vehicles, etc. And we also talk about sustainability and climate change and whatnot. The reality is, I think a lot of the companies in the world, they have no idea what the physical status of their assets is, and essentially how can you say if you are sustainable or not if you don't know what is happening with your buildings and with your vehicles and anything that the machinery that you have. And I think digital twins are the way we solve this problem. And I think companies like obviously NVIDIA and Quark and Autodesk and so many others that are working on enabling digital twin technologies are how we're gonna have how we're gonna apply digital technologies to solve these really really difficult problems. Because I know it sounds like a segue into this thing, but it is actually related to some of the biggest challenges that we're facing right now with climate change and sustainability.
Yeah, I mean, that was an excellent explanation of that. And that's really big in so many ways. People are using. I mean, you could use digital twins in so many commercial applications. Like, for example, like you got a warehouse, you could digitally twin your warehouse and run synthetic data simulations. Which to the like listeners who don't know what that is, synthetic is just it's just simulations, right? It's made up environment situations that it can cross reference millions of them to understand like what might happen in a certain event and the probability of these things happening XYZ, right? So having these digital twin environments allows for this like replication of concepts really quickly to be able to get the most probable answer. So it's really cool for that. And what are some other really cool uses of digital twins, like examples that you guys know of that are kind of currently being implemented?
Well, I've seen this a lot, for example, in the case of new build infrastructure. Let's say you're creating a bridge and you can actually have sensors on the bridge to see how it's being impacted by the environment, see if something needs to be replaced, or you can update an existing piece of infrastructure like a bridge or even a road and compare this to other pieces of infrastructure to see basically how healthy it is. We have a limited maintenance budget. We want to make every maintenance dollar count. Send the maintenance crew over here because this part is at 5%, while the rest is at 50, and so on.
Yeah. And this kind of all. Sorry, go ahead, Crasper.
I was gonna say that really touches upon those buzz terms that you mentioned in Gaussian Splats and point clouds and photogrammetry.
What I was just gonna get into here. Here, I'll pull up this. I'll pull it up. So yeah, all these things kind of interrelate with this stuff. These words, these terms, the big scary terms that most normal people go, I don't know what that means. So, and yeah, it's really cool stuff. So So basically, you got photogrammetry, NeRFs, and Gaussian splatting all involve using a 3D point cloud, which is a bunch of little points that make up a volume, and a volume being like an object, right? And instead of having all these lines that connect all those dots, it's just the dots, right? So it's this point. It's like a cloud. Think of a cloud with like water droplets in it, making up a form. In a simple way of explaining it. And then it's using that point cloud to reconstruct a 3D scene digitally. Let's see if we can get down to like some examples here. So photogrammetry is simply put a bunch of different images stitched together to make a 3D object.
And
So taking it,
also,
sorry, go ahead.
just to jump in real quick, photogrammetry is very old technology. I think the mathematics behind photogrammetry is probably like 200 years old.
Yeah, and this is photogrammetry. You might be familiar with this if you've used an app like oh shoot, I should know this off the top of my head. What are some of
Polycam?
the Polycam? Yeah, sorry, I
Yeah.
couldn't think of it. Yeah, like if you've ever used Polycam, you can like make 3D objects of things. It's getting even wilder now because you could just take a photo of something and it will make a 3D object based on it's guessing what's on the other side, which kind of segues us into Gaussian splatting, right?
Right.
And Gaussian splatting is a 3D point cloud generated from a series of angled photos. It's not used to create a mesh. Instead, each point is used to directly render the final image by turning those points into a Gaussian. Now, what is a Gaussian? You might be asking. Include two or more sets of data, transparency, and covariance, which refers to its 3D shape as an ellipsoid. By blending millions of Gaussians together, we get a smoother, more photorealistic representation of a 3D space that can be generated in real time, which is really important if you guys want to explain that further in a more technical sense.
I think, yeah, it's all about basically probability. It is exactly what a Gaussian is in probability in mathematics. It's gives you this kind of like a bell curve that uh, gives you a certain probability or certainty that a dot with a particular color, because you spoke about point clouds. These point clouds, each point actually stores two types of values. One is the location in space, so XYZ coordinates, if we're being technical, and then the other one is color. So basically, this is I'm looking at my wall. This is a white point or a blue point or whatever.
Yeah, little
And
points containing information.
yes, and with Gaussians, the more of those you put together, the higher certainty you have that a certain resulting pixel in a picture or 3D frame or a frame of a 3D app is a certain color. And that's why when you're viewing Gaussian splats in VR, for example, and you move around with as users do in VR, you will have certain features of the Gaussian appearing and disappearing because it is related to the amount of photos you've taken from any particular angle. So based on that probability, how certain the system is that let's say there is a pixel with a given color, a part of the picture may disappear. Like I've seen one example where you're looking at a car and then you tilt your head slightly and um, one of the lights disappears because there's not enough photos.
Right.
But what Gaussian splats are great for is, as you said, you can create one with even just a few photos. So if I want to capture my environment around me, which means like I'm in my room, I want to capture what's it like across the street, what are the other houses in the neighborhood. This is very convenient technology because I snap a few photos or a short video, which is just a sequence of photos.
Right.
And then I can create this amazing high fidelity 3D scan, which if I get closer, as I said, it might not be very accurate, but as a background of my other experience, it's incredible and gives me very high fidelity. And having this type of ability to capture my environment is very useful in many different scenarios, like architecture, in movies, even games,
Yep.
because it gives you context. It gives you context on what's around you. And then in for the stuff where we need a lot more detail now, there we can do photogrammetry, or we can just do a more sophisticated NeRF, or Gaussian Splat. Um, but it's just been such a great enabler because of this feature where I don't need to take so many photos. I can take just a few photos and create a beautiful Gaussian splat. And a NeRF is essentially like a neural net, which is running the same way. Well, it's oversimplification, but similar way how ChatGPT is answering your questions. NeRF is running a neural net to determine the color of a pixel.
Right. So in a distilled way of saying it, what these allow you to do is display higher fidelity experiences using less information,
Yes.
which allows for
Yeah.
a lot more freedom in the compute, and less strain on GPU and hardware necessities, correct?
And manual labor. Yeah.
And manual labor.
Just to give you a bit more of an idea about this, Cody, the thing about NeRFs is they actually take more computational power, but they're a good use case for stuff like what we're doing with cloud compute, because the idea is quite simply, even though the NeRF takes more power to display than basically a little AI showing how something should look like, you can have that on the cloud somewhere close to you. That's what edge compute is. And then display a NeRF on your decade-old toaster of a laptop, because everything actually happens away from your computer itself and might just be viewed on the web or streamed to your XR device, like with what we're doing.
Yes, yeah. So taking a lot of that compute out of the hardware and into the edge. And then that's just like an awesome advancement in that tech, especially as like 5G and 6G comes out. We get even faster relays of information, where you can just be on Wi-Fi and you could be doing this. This is like a very, very important piece of the puzzle to go into AR glasses, where you're using these things out on the street, right? You need really fast information because you're moving, and to do moving compute, well, that's pretty complex, and that's where, like, I think these technologies really make this capable. Because without them, you're having to have a massive headset to do all this, like you said, heavy compute, and it's taking that away from that and isolating it somewhere close.
Right. One of the things that I'm most excited about is our current ongoing collaboration with T-Mobile that we're going to be discussing in more detail at the upcoming NVIDIA GTC, where basically we're leveraging 5G in a practical use case. You want to talk a bit more about that, Crossy? Give you a nice segue there.
On that as well,
Sure.
can I add something to that as well?
Yes.
And maybe you can lace in is the use of satellite and how that might play into things as things like Starlink start to become
Yes.
more publicly available.
Yeah, 100%. I think there are like so many use cases where connectivity is challenging, especially getting broadband. And in America, I remember there was a big example where um, laying out. So they were supposed to provide internet to a remote area, and broadband internet. Installing broadband internet was very, very expensive, whereas something like Starlink would solve that problem quite easily, just because you have a bunch of satellites that are covering the entire Earth essentially, or most of it. And then similar with 5G, like radio travels over air. You don't need to lay down wires in the ground to get internet connectivity to those places. So I think it's a great technology. And the only missing piece for an ideal solution today is to have 5G capabilities on the XR devices the same way your phone does. So right now you have to hook up an external device like a router or a little dongle to your, let's say, to your Meta Quest or your Apple Vision Pro, and then you can have 5G connectivity. But it's a no-brainer. In the future, you just have a 5G chip inside of the next Quest Vision Pro HTC device,
Yeah.
and then these can talk to the 5G network directly, and then everywhere you are, you can get those XR services. It's gonna start with stuff like navigation. You talked about AR glasses.
Yeah.
That's a great use case for it. Just showing you, yeah, bits and pieces of information that's very useful. But I think we touched upon a few technologies that complement each other very well. It's XR and then 5G to provide connectivity, and then AI to provide usability for the person. And I think those in tandem are very, very closely related to one another.
Yeah, it seems we're so very close to those things having just rapid success to the point where it's doable. Like a lot, we spent the last decade developing these technologies and saying, this is gonna make it possible. Well, now those things are here and we have them, and now it's just a matter of connecting them together and just refining them
Yes.
to make the thing like actually scalable and have the ability to roll out. And that was what was so for me. My moment, you mentioned your moment earlier. Mine was seeing that conference where Meta showed the Orion glasses.
Right.
That for me was the real like, man, this is it. Like we're a couple years out. Yeah, that was a real kick in the butt. Like, all right, you got to really put it into gear here, dude. Like get involved because it's gonna take off very, very soon, I think.
That's a great one. Yeah. I think it's the future. Just a question of commoditizing the technology so it's affordable enough. I think because if you think about it, especially virtual reality has been around for a while. I think with a lot of new technologies, people expect for them to develop much quicker. People don't realize when the technology gets mature enough. And I wouldn't say that XR is there, but there's been tremendous progress, and a few years from now it's going to be so ubiquitous that we're not going to even notice how it happened, because it was like a small moving coup in a way.
Yeah, it's quick. It's happening quick, and it's this. I thought that moment with the Orions was so special because I think it did what it did to me. Like that kick it into gear was also done to other competitors. So
Yeah.
where you open up this competition space is in all technologies is where you start to see the real innovation happen, because everyone's working towards this idea, and you start to get really fast iterations of really capable stuff. Like we've seen with like DeepSeek, as I'm sure you're aware, this is shook the world the other day. Which definitely obviously got the attention of every major AI developer that we know and use. Going, oh man, okay, this was a novel event. We need to figure out how to do it. So this is now they're all working on how to do something as efficient as them, and now that will be the new benchmark, and then it'll happen
That's
again.
right.
Right? It's pretty interesting time we're living in.
It's awesome.
I have a question for you. Do you guys have anything you're currently working on that you would like to share with everybody?
Of course. Rusty, you first?
So much stuff. Yeah, so Blake mentioned the GTC talk that we're gonna give together with T-Mobile, and an amazing architecture firm called Lake Photo, based out of San Antonio, Texas, with offices across the country. Uh, I think it's live. The GTC page is live, and our talk is live, so I think we can mention it. But it's just the marriage of NVIDIA technology in the cloud, QuarkXR as a platform, and the content that the architects create, and the connectivity that uh, operators like T-Mobile provide. And T-Mobile, they're in a very good position right now because they have very, very low latency connectivity to anywhere in America. So they're in a pole position to provide the streaming services to professionals through partners like Quark, I'm happy to say. And so working on that, working on very exciting things related to NVIDIA Omniverse, which is, we haven't touched upon Omniverse, but it's NVIDIA's way to basically connect a very fragmented ecosystem of professional solutions like Revit, AutoCAD, Blender, Maya, what have you, through the OpenUSD file format. So basically, the idea of Omniverse is you create in Blender or Revit, and then all those assets get composited in one project, which may be like, in our case, that could be an XR experience. But it's always difficult to transfer assets from one solution to the next, like from Blender or from Revit or for AutoCAD. Now we have this OpenUSD standard, which NVIDIA, Apple, and other companies are pushing, and NVIDIA Omniverse automates the whole transfer process. So if the designer changes the model in Blender and you have the Unity app that you're building, it will automatically get updated in Unity. So it makes, we talked about how hard it used to be to create 3D applications and how much easier it is today. I think Omniverse is another enabler that is very important, and CorkXR is leveraging it to build this synchronization layer across the whole wild west of solutions that creators are using, and enables us as at Quark to be kind of the XR front end to all of these ecosystems. So it's very exciting. It's going to enable a lot of use cases for creatives to put their assets into XR, and it's nothing so there's nothing quite like seeing somebody who's very talented in creating, let's say, it could be a 3D model of a house, it could be some virtual digital sculpture or anything, an artist, digital artist, to see them experience their creation in VR or AR for the first time. This is like the most amazing feeling and the most fulfilling thing that you can get as an XR developer. Seeing somebody enjoy,
Yeah, that's great. As somebody who's got like, I'm like cross skilled, and have had dealt with so many different type of files and types, and trying to like make things work and transfer this. It's like a lot of things don't like working with each other. That's just like really nice, like, I don't know, democratization of usability, right? Where like everything works together. It's like this nice communal type of back end feeling that I'm getting from it, which is really great because it's so complicated to, and it's partly because like they don't want people's stuff to work on their platform because they want you to use their platform, not the other one. Yeah, and it creates complications for creators, and it's understandable. But this is like a really nice advancement in that ability to just work with whatever tool you find useful for your style of creating, and then being able to easily transfer that into its final form factor, which is really great. Yeah, I love that they're doing that.
And then release back. Yep. I've also been leading the charge together with Crossy in actually expanding out the pool of people who have access to our SDK, starting with a group of educators within construction management and AEC more broadly. I've really enjoyed the initial conversations we've had with professors and lecturers who are like, can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do this? And we're like, yeah, you can do whatever you want. It's a Unity SDK. Go nuts. And here you go.
it's the beauty of Unity, and like it's so easy to get started. Obviously, a lot of the creative industry is on Unreal, and we'll get to Unreal in the future. But when it comes to creating real-time multi-user experiences, Unity is so easy and user-friendly. And I think Blake is onto something with he was pushing me very hard to talk to educational institutions, and I'm very excited about the next generation of professionals. May they be in construction, in architecture, industrial design, adopting these technologies, because let's be honest, these are very conservative industries and they move really, really slow. uh, it's the young people that they need to be the inspiration of innovation. So it's a great idea to work with educational institutions across America.
Yeah, that's great. There's some awesome things to learn from the younger user demographic, things that they're being innovative with and creative with, and how they're using things that we didn't use them like that before. And that's always a great place to look, especially as they're the ones that are creating the stuff that the mass adopters of this are going to be the consumers of. So it's really great that you're getting connected in with them as well.
Nice. And
I
then
think
we can extend the same thing to the listeners of this podcast. If anyone wants to explore working with our SDK, just feel free to hit us up and we can
Yeah.
give you access today.
you go to their website here. Here's where you can kind of take a peek at all their stuff and watch some demos. You said there's a form here.
Yeah, it's on the top and right. Contact us.
All right. If you go to contact us, you fill out this form here and submit, and they will give you guys saying access to the SDK.
Yep.
100%.
Awesome. Yeah. So that's quarkxr.com, QUARKXR.com. You can see it on the lower banner here as well. If you'd like to find them on LinkedIn, here is their LinkedIn. It's QuarkXR, and their individual LinkedIns are here. This is Krasimir Nikolov and Blake Wind. I'm sure they'd love to connect with you if you have a conversation you'd like to have with them. They've been awesome to talk to so far for me. Very informational. So, all right, in closing, do you guys have any app recommendations or book recommendations, something that you think would be extremely useful for people who are in this space or want to get into this part of the extended reality space?
Well, in terms of apps, I would definitely start with Scaniverse by Niantic, and then Teleport by Vario, which are two amazing apps to create scans with your phone. Basically, Gaussian Splats that you're creating. And the beautiful thing is they have platforms on how to use those scans into XR. So view them in XR or create XR applications with your scans. And a great way to also get into XR, I think, by scanning the world around you.
And you said, what was Teleport? Who was that by?
Vario.
Vario. There it is.
Varjo. It's company out of Finland. They create amazing high-end XR hardware, and now also an amazing scanning app. We used it actually. We used it to scan one of our projects in Palo Alto, California, and it was an amazing experience.
Yes, this is awesome for so many use cases. Things like this, for example, like this whole HVAC ventilation system that they got scanned here, where they can do kind of a walkthrough for, and I'm sure there will be final checks, but I think we kind of like spoke on this before, where you're reducing the trips necessary, where say an inspector can go and walk through this and just see like, okay, like generally everything is there. This looks like you guys got this there, you got this installed. All right, I can issue permit, for the next part of it, and then you send someone out at the earliest convenience to do like the final check or a hard inspection. But there's probably more a more elegant way of explaining how this is usable. But I think generally, that's one use case, and here's one like you do like museums and all sorts of fun stuff using this technology.
The important stuff is that hardware that used to cost in the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars now is available on your phone. So
Yeah.
you can just scan the world around you.
Amazing times. Yeah, and I think we briefed that too, where, there's this whole future where we've got a lot of, like, scans already from companies like Google who have, like, Street View and inside businesses, right? So you can go and explore things. What we're starting to get into is this, like, localized scanning from people with their own devices. And there's, like, I think there's actually, like, some apps that pay you to do it. Where you can go out and they want you to scan, like, statues, like, close up, get the detail that, like, a lot of the Street View stuff doesn't get. So this is, like, opening up, like, really interesting stuff, and, like, through that, with a mass adoption of that, we're gonna have, like, really intimate scans of, like, so many pieces of the city that wasn't really captured before. So we're gonna have, like, really the capability to have really rich experiences that we don't have quite yet.
So there's one other thing, Cody, because you mentioned book recommendations, and there's really only one book that I can think of that immediately comes to mind, which is the revised edition of Matthew Ball's Metaverse book. I think it's called The Metaverse Building the Spatial Internet, came out last year. It's really very good, and it's probably the only comprehensive book that I've actually seen that I like it in part because of the time that he spends talking about streaming. And he hasn't talked with us about Quark. Let me just say this. We haven't hired him as an advisor or anything, but in the section where he talks about streaming, he's pretty much articulating the vision of our company word for word. So if you want to see where the industry is going by someone who we haven't paid, you can check this book out.
Amazing. Amazing.
A very important detail. This is not a paid. That's great. Thank you. I will actually buy this book myself. I'm buying every book that I get recommended, that I find
That's awesome.
very useful. Yeah, I got a stack going here already. They've been great. So I'd love to add one to the collection myself. That is, I think, like, kind of like captures all the questions I had, unless you guys have something you'd like to say in closing yourselves.
This has been a really great conversation.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think we covered so many topics. It's hard to, go into each of those topics that we touched upon is its own episode, perhaps in the future. So
Yeah, I would love that. Yeah, I think a follow-up would be great.
Me too. It'd be great. And I hope really the audience enjoys it. I hope people find it useful, and I hope we inspire a few folks out there to try XR, or maybe if they had ideas about great XR applications, I think it's an ideal time to test those out in the real world. And there's nothing to wait for. It's the time is now.
Yeah, that's excellently said. Yeah, and thank you for being on. I really appreciate it, because the whole point of this podcast is to educate people and inspire people who aren't currently in the field to find it fascinating, and to watch these podcasts and see the wide breadth of options that you have for a career. It's not just working in hardware. There's all these other things out there, and you might not be aware of them because there's not a lot of exposure to them yet. It's still a bit new. It's been around for a while, but it's still rapidly kind of opening up job opportunities. Which is my goal is to offer that education and understanding of what's available, so that people like me, when I was interested, have an easier time navigating how to get into it, and maybe to find what they want faster.
100%.
Yeah. So that's all for this podcast. Thank you guys for coming on. I look forward to having you on a future podcast. And until then, we'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you, Cody.
Take care.
Bye, guys. Bye.